Welcome to part 2 of my study guide presentation. So yes, we are looking at how to create a study guide for the midterm. By the way, the midterm will be on next Thursday. Okay, so I created a list that is somewhat hard to see as we go through the study guide, but I wanted to show you the actual items that I'm trying to get. So these are the key items for tables. So they're table methods and .select and .column, .show, .where, .sort. Now we haven't used .take as much, but it turns out to be really useful. Okay, and we also use the .num rows and .num columns. We use .drop. I tend to use .select, but we can use .drop. .select gets us some columns from a table, and .drop just drops some columns out of a table. And then relabeled gets used. Are these as important? No, but they are going to be covered in the study guide that I help you create. We have our data visualization methods we want to look at for the numeric variables. We have the scatter plot, the histogram, the box plot. And remember, we can create the line plots like in the graphs for the Huck Finn. The book wasn't Tom Sawyer, the book was Huck Finn. For the Huck Finn and Little Women books. We did line plots. So not used as much, but they are used. And then, of course, we have, for the category variables, we use .group and .pivot. And then for the visualization, this really is the only visualization, but these were good ways to study category variables. Okay, so that's the outline of what I'm trying to put together with this study guide. I will show you one more page. Yes, we did learn some arrays and functions. There are some that are really important here, like NP range and make array, and we were using NP average a lot. We've used these some. And then there are these special characters that are in NumPy, which pi and e, we can't get them, but there is a quick function to get them. And we don't have the functions sine and cosine, so we didn't use those as much, but the key ones there are make array and the NPA range, and of course using NP average. Okay, so let me jump back up to the top, and I'm going to show you my study guide. Okay, so remember, to get into the study guide, we are clicking anywhere on the course calendar. Why? Well, because we need to open the Jupyter Hub, right? If we don't have the Jupyter Hub, oops, sorry. If we don't have the Jupyter Hub open, we can't locate this file we saved. And here we go. So we do file, sorry, to give it a second to, there we go. So file open. When I do file open, remember there are a lot of different places we could put it. I put mine in public material. You see study guide here. I can click on that and it opens. Now I'm just going to go back to a copy that I have. All right. So make sure we do the initialization code. And I brought in my personality data set that was collected in around 2012, 2013, 2014 at the University of North Georgia. And okay, so we did this before, the .select. It chooses a column from a table and returns a table, and then I have an example. Okay, and I want to put .column right by it. Why? Well, because the .select age produces a table of ages, but .column age gets the values as an array. So they do basically the same thing. They go into this column age and they grab all the values, but the return is different. That's why I put returns table for select. and returns array for column. Why? Because that's important. And if we need to do math, if we want to do NP average, we have to have an array. Okay, so dot sort sorts entire table based on entries in one numeric column. Actually, that doesn't need to be numeric. It'll sort a category column. It'll sort trues and falses, yeses and nos. So sorts the entire table based on entries in one column. We just pick the column. So here, right, the whole personality data set has been sorted based on age. And so the youngest students were 17 years old. There's a couple of them, and then 18. Why did I put in a second one? Okay, well, there's this option, descending equals true, that we used a lot. Why? Because it grabs the oldest and the sort reverses the sort. So up here, just straight sort is from least to greatest. And when I do the descending equals true, it's from greatest down to least. So when you're making notes about the dot sort, remember to make a note about the descending equals true. Okay, so let's take a look at dot where. Now, dot where is a little bit frustrating because it's got these predicates. What do I mean by predicates? Well, I put one in, r dot equal to. Okay, so I'm doing the personality data set, and I'm just looking for members of the core because I put r equal to yes. So people who answered yes to, I'm in the core of cadets. Okay, and you can see that in the column core, right, we just have y's, no no's. Okay, but where do I get all these predicates? R dot above, R dot between, and there are a lot. So let me remind you, this is a really important step. If I go back to the course calendar, remember there's this Python reference, and I do suggest you take a look at it when you're creating your study guide. Why? Well, so at the top, of course, it has these different table methods that we use. Table.select, table.drop, and it has information about them that you may want to include. Okay, but scroll down and then it does string methods. Now we haven't done these, so ignore string methods for now. But we have done array functions and methods, but I'm going to skip those for now. Why? Because, the fourth section down, it says table.where predicates. Okay, so we're looking at .where, and this is a place to go to make sure you have them all. Do you need to list them? I don't know. That it's your study guide, not mine. So list them if you think it's going to be valuable. They do sound like what they do, right? So r dot equal to seems to do what you'd think. R dot above is a greater than. Above underscore or underscore equal underscore to, right? That does. It's greater than or equal to x. Okay, so do you need the description? I don't know. You may want that. But here is the place to find all of the predicates that go with your dot where. So that's why I put this in here. You need to decide what you'd like to do with the predicates. And do you need an example for each one? I don't think so, but you may want a list of all the predicates. You can just open up another column, another row here in your workbook and start listing your predicates if you'd like. But it's your study guide, so do what you think makes sense. Okay, now dot take. Well, it chooses a row or rows from the column, from a table to display, from a table to display. And so here's an example where we're getting this is actually the first, the third, and the fifth, right? Because of how the computer starts counting at 0. Okay, and this, I just put in 1, it's going to take row 2. And you notice that down below, it's the same row as this one, right? The second row in our option up above. Why do I do 2 examples? Well, you can just specify 3 or 4 rows that you want and separate them by commas, or you can just specify 1 row. So and they're not very long tables, so I would I like to see the examples when possible, so I did that. Num rows and num columns, you just throw them on the end. So pers.num rows, there are 129 rows in the table. And pers.num columns, there are 36 columns, so there are 36 different variables. Okay, and we're getting down into the less used table methods, but relabeled is a great one, right? So here I just took the personality table and I changed the column age to give it the name how old. And I only did that just to show you. Yep, it just takes the age column and changes its name. That's all that relabeled does. Now, is it the most important method that we're learning? No, but it is really, really useful sometimes. Sometimes we get a table where the column names are unwieldy and we can just relabel them. Okay, and I haven't actually created a example of show because I keep using it all the time to keep these tables slender. I also want to remind you that you probably want to say something about show. And remember that if I do show with an empty parentheses, right, it shows all the rows in the table, all the way down. I can see the entire table. How often do I want to do that? Well, on my study guide, I don't ever want to do that, right? I want a show 5 wide just to keep the space. By the way, there's no page limit on your study guide, so when you take the midterm, you'll be showing your study guide to the camera. You'll be using the Respondus Lockdown browser, so you'll need to take the midterm with a laptop or computer that has a camera. And so you'll show your study guide to the camera, but it doesn't matter if it's 8 pages or 2 pages, right? If you create the study guide here in a workbook, then you can use it, whether it's 2 pages or 5 pages. Okay, and so there's relabeled, and I'm going to wait for the next video. Sorry, to show you right, the data visualization methods, and I'll be back in just a minute.